So sometimes during the holidays, I think about my dad more. Some of you know that he died about 3 years ago. This will be our third Christmas without him. And sometimes we do kind of goofy and eccentric things to honor him in our family because he had a few eccentric habits himself. He used to love to wear crazy socks that were a little bit wilder than anyone else would wear. And so one of my nephews and I always wear crazy socks when we're together for Thanksgiving or Christmas, just kind of to honor our dad. But one of the things that happens to me in this time of year is it kind of draws me back to all these little life lessons, sentences, phrases, wisdom that my dad would give to me. And I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with a few of those phrases, including this one. He would always say to me, "Greg, you can always get better. Greg, you can always get better." Now, if you work with me or live with me or hang around with me very much, you know that even though I have a love-hate relationship with that phrase, I have completely embraced it in my life, sometimes for better and sometimes for worse. There are a few ways that phrase is a very negative phrase that can hang over your life. The idea that you can always get better sometimes means that you never step back and just experience full satisfaction. You know, sometime between tonight and Sunday morning, I'm going to tweak this sermon. Why? Because it can always get better. I'm going to wake up Sunday morning and think, you know what, maybe it was good, I can always get better. And it leaves you sometimes feeling a little unsatisfied. But at the same time, it can bring tremendous benefits to your life. We actually have one of our DNA markers around Suncrest that probably comes out of who I am and maybe who my dad was. And it's a value that we have around excellence. And our idea for excellence, we try to be very clear about this, is excellence is very important when you're in church life. If we can't do something with excellence, we shouldn't do it. Excellence does not mean perfect, and it does not mean slicked, but it does mean intentional and well prepared. And one of the things we say is we constantly invite and engage critique because we always want to get better. So that's how we live around here. But is that really healthy to say you can always get better? Well, it's a love-hate relationship. I have the same exact love-hate relationship with the title that we chose for this Christmas series, Best Christmas Ever. In one sense, it's fantastic, right? Wouldn't every one of us this year love to have the best Christmas ever? And if I could really explain to you over the next few weeks how to have that Christmas and you put it in your life, that would be great. I do fear a little bit that calling something best Christmas ever now puts you actually back on the rat race. It makes you think, I have to top whatever we did last year. And actually, if you have that mindset, you're going to have a horrible Christmas. If it's always about making something better or topping what you did last time, as much as I love Clark Griswold, and I do love Clark Griswold, I am not asking for him to be your mentor to set your expectations out of line and then place those expectations on everyone else. But I do want to cast a vision. I want you to think about what your best Christmases have been, what your best experiences have been, and be open to the idea that you could do Christmas the same way this year that you did last year, and you'll get the same results that you did last year. Or if you put a little bit of intentionality to it, a little bit of preparation, if you'd be open to some critique about how you've approached Christmas in the past, is it possible that this Christmas could be the best Christmas ever? Now, some of the things we're going to talk about over the course of this series, you will still have in front of you with time to do until Christmas. I mean, we're less than 4 weeks away right now. You all are aware of that. I don't mean to stress anybody out. But some of them you may think, well, the ship sailed on that one, Greg. You're talking about gift giving tonight, and I'm done with my gift buying. Is anyone here done with their gift buying? Nobody willing to admit it. I appreciate that. So I want us to think a little bit about what it would look like to make the best Christmas ever. Now, if you think, what would you aim at to make something the best Christmas ever? I'm going to suggest that it's not any different than what makes all of our experiences the best ever. In fact, this is the question I want to ask. What makes anything the best ever? If you were to think back through your life and think, that was the best birthday ever. That was the best Christmas ever. That was the best summer ever. The ingredients that are popping up in your mind right now will be a surprise to absolutely no one. There are some things that make things better and worse, and some things that have almost no effect at all. And the first part of what we know makes things the best ever is really this. It's simply who you share it with. It's always about relationships. Always. I tell people all the time, when your relationships are good, life is good. Your job can be bad. You can be not making very much money. You could be struggling through a health thing in your life. But if your relationships are tight, life is good. And, of course, the flip side of that is also true. That when your relationships are bad, life is bad. You could be making all kinds of money. You could be perfectly healthy. Lots could be going right. But if your relationships are pulled away, life is not going to be good. And if you think back to that best summer ever, or the best birthday ever, or the best Christmas ever, chances are faces and names are coming into your mind. But there's one more ingredient. It's not just the idea of who you're sharing it with. It is also the idea of how you shared it. Because you can get together with the same group of people and have the same mundane experiences, and it does not produce an experience that you think is memorable or something that you want to repeat. One of the things that happens during your best summer ever, or your best birthday ever, or your best Christmas ever, is that you were with a group of people who were meaningful to you, and then you pushed the envelope a little bit. You went and did something unique. You didn't do it the same way that you did it before. You had an adventure together or an experience together. It could have even been a sadness together, but it was something that you were together in a unique way. And what I want to cast a vision for as we walk into this Christmas is that if you would like to get to the end of the Christmas season and think, you know what? That was one of the best Christmases ever. I think it will be because of who you've spent it with and how you shared it with them. With a commitment not just to do the same things in the same way. So today we're going to talk about the nature of gift giving. And gift giving, of course, has its roots in the scriptures and even in the story of Jesus himself. But it's one of those places where our relationships and the Christmas season intersect with one another. Now, I'm going to need your help in the room. Just a quick survey. Some of you are good gift givers. Some of you are bad gift givers. I'm not asking you to evaluate the person sitting next to you. I just want to do a little self-assessment here. So, self-assessment, I need everybody to participate. You're either a good gift giver or a bad gift giver. How many of you are good gift givers? That's good. You should look around. You can take some advice from the people who are raising their hand right now. How many of you are bad gift givers, right? I count myself among bad gift givers. Let me give you a couple of examples just to give you my credibility on how bad of a gift giver I am. So I had the same assistant here for almost 12 years. Cindy Barker was her name, and she just retired last year. And one of the first agreements that we came to when she became my assistant was I said to her, I'm like, all right, we don't do birthdays. Like, I don't want you to get me anything for my birthday. I'm not going to get you anything for your birthday. I said, yeah, they have these holidays like Boss's Day and Assistant's Day. We're not doing those either. I just kind of set it out there right from the beginning. And it worked for a lot of years. I got a new assistant this past year when Cindy retired. Heather's fantastic. And one of the first conversations I had with her was, hey, just to be clear, we don't do birthdays. I'm not getting you anything for your birthday. You don't give me anything. Boss's Day, we don't do that. I'm a horrible gift giver, okay? Do any of your families at Christmas play this stupid game where it's a gift exchange and you open one and then you steal them from each other and then you pass them around and it lasts way longer than it needs to? Do I sound bitter about this? How many of you have a family that play some sort of game like that? Jenny's family plays this game. Now, I love Jenny's family, but this is so annoying. You know what I do every year? I buy a gift that I want. I put it in the men's exchange, and then when it comes time, I go and pick my own gift. That way I make sure I get something that I want. And if someone steals it from me, I steal it back the next time. I never choose a gift from the pile when it's going to be a surprise. I'm just acknowledging to you, I'm a terrible gift giver, okay? And we all could get better at this because there's something really beautiful, really something beautiful, if you'll step in to saying, what if gifts could actually be an expression of love? What if I get better at gift giving and it transforms something about Christmas? What if I stop paying attention to the expectations that everyone else places on me? What if I just stop trading gift cards with all of my family members when it comes time to gift giving? So think about this. Within the Christmas story, we have right in front of us the very notion that Christ himself came into the world as a gift from God to us. Way back in the writings of Isaiah, who wrote hundreds and hundreds of years before the manger, we have this from the prophet. It says, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given." This is a gift from God. And then I want you to see what kind of gift this is. The government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. Those are all relational words. And I think there's a beginning connection here to say that, yeah, when God sends his Son into the world as a gift, there's a relational element to it, and we should not miss the relationship. Later on in the book of James, this is a letter that was written by Jesus' own brother. James simply says this about God: every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father. And so I want you to think over the next few minutes with me in an uber practical way about your gift giving this Christmas, and how, if you think about it with a little more intentionality and a little more preparation, you could make expressions this Christmas that create the environment that make this maybe one of the best Christmas ever. Let's come at a few questions. First is the question of motivation. Why? Why would you give? Why do you give? When you think about all the people that you give gifts to, maybe it's a small circle for you, maybe it's a very large circle for you. Why do you give gifts? Is sometimes it out of obligation? They gave you a gift, and so you feel like you should return the favor. Are you trying to include a whole group, and so you're trying to equalize gifts for everyone when you do the group? Why do you give? And here's one of my encouragements to you in this Christmas season, is that every time you give a gift, the reason you give it would be because you truly care. Why would you give? The answer has to be because you truly care. Actually, if we dive down into that a little bit, we understand that gift giving is a relational experience. And there might be a few different motivations for what you're trying to express in giving the gifts that you give, whether it's to your father or to your child or to your brother or to a neighbor or to a coworker. At some level, this becomes personalized to say, I care. I want to see joy on your face. And so I'll give the kind of gift where I've thought about this enough that I'll give you a gift that will bring joy to you because I care. Many times the motivation for gift giving is not joy, but instead it's honor. To say, I want to give you this gift because you're a meaningful person in my life, and I want to honor that. Do you remember what happened not too long after Jesus was born? First there was, angels in the sky and all these things, but there was a star above that attracted travelers. And when they eventually made their way to Jesus, what did they do? They brought to him gifts. This is the passage that describes that in Matthew 2. It says, on coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. For some of you, this is a framework that will help you be a better gift giver this year. Did Jesus need gold, frankincense, and myrrh? He did not. Did Jesus find joy by receiving it? He did not. What was actually happening in this gift is they were acknowledging the meaning of someone in their life, and they brought gifts that were commensurate with that level of meaning. And maybe when you're gift giving this year, the right way to think about it is to say, what would bring honor to a person this year? So this shows that we really care when it's out of joy, when we bring joy or we bring honor. One of the very important other ways that we have to think about giving at Christmas is when there's a need. When we follow the life and teaching of Jesus, one of the things he constantly encourages us to do is to keep our eyes open for people who are in need. He actually personalizes it, and he says, hey, when you fed the least of these, when you clothed the least of these, when you were there for those in greatest need, that's what you did for me. And I want to really encourage, I encourage this every year, that in this season of the year, that you think about your gift giving, not just in terms of people who are in your circle who probably already have more than they need, but that you would include a serious part of your giving to help those that are in need. Maybe that's grabbing an angel tree when you go, angel tree child to sponsor this year when you go. Maybe that's giving to our compassion offering that we receive on Christmas Eve that's earmarked to help people who are in need all year long. Maybe it's just a family that you know. If you think through all of your extended family or all of your neighborhood or among all of your coworkers and say, you know what, that family's having a tough time this year. I want to encourage you to give. And it will make this possibly the best Christmas ever. Sometimes people ask me, Greg, what do you mean? What should we do? Like, how much should we give to people who are in need? It's a season like that. Yeah, we want to give to people in need. And I always give people the same guidance. Here's what I say. You can't afford to meet everybody's need. When you think about how much could I afford to give to people in need this Christmas, I think there's one answer to that. I'd say, well, how much can you afford to give to all the other people who aren't in need? Let that be your guide. Add up whatever you're spending on people who really don't need anything, and make sure you give at least that much to people who are in need. It would make this perhaps the best Christmas ever. Now you start to think about that a little bit, and we move through some practical questions and say, okay, if that's why we give, to honor or to bring joy or to meet a need, then who will you give to this year? And I actually want you to think about this with three frameworks. And if you're following along in the outline, there's these lines that will come up in just a second. And this might seem surprising to you, but the first framework I want to give you when you think about who you're going to give to this year is actually who not to give to. So let me give you some permission here to subtract some people from your giving list. Anyone that you're giving to out of obligation, anyone that you're just trading gift cards with, I'm not saying go ahead and let them give you a gift card. You just don't give one this year. I'm saying, why don't you start a conversation? If all you're doing is trading, then say, hey, you know what? Maybe we just don't give gifts this year. I think that's okay. Sometimes with my kids, your parents, you probably do this. I'll tell my kids they're not allowed to do something, and they'll say, oh, Dad, my friends. I say, well, you can just use me as your excuse, right? Just tell them your dad won't let you do it. And some of you have someone in mind right now. You're like, I really don't want to give them a gift this year. And I'm giving you permission. You can just say, my pastor told me I didn't have to give you a gift this year. Now, why would you subtract people from your gift giving? Why would you do that? It's actually so you can be a better gift giver to the people who are remaining. One of the things that happens when you stack up your list and you give and you give and you give and you give and now you're giving to everyone is it actually means that the way most people think about it is I'm not able to do meaningful gifts for the people I actually want to express honor to or bring joy to or meet needs to the most. And if any of your gift giving is out of obligation, it's not really a relationship that's going to be meaningful to you, I think one of the things you should do is subtract some people off your list. Go ahead and write those names down in that blank. And then, of course, I think you should probably add some people to your gift-giving list. In fact, I really just want to ask you to do one thing. You can carry this further if you'd like. I think that you should sit down as an individual if you're single. Think about this. As a couple, if you're married. As a family, if you have children at home. And just think about this. Who's been a really meaningful person in my life this past year? Maybe it's not someone I would normally give a gift to. And it's not someone you have to give a gift to again next year. But you have a conversation with your kids and say, hey, who's been there for us this year? Who's been meaningful for us this year? Who's shaped our lives this year? And say, you know what, this year, we're going to give that person, that couple, that family a gift. And we're going to think about what that gift is, and we're going to make it meaningful, and we want to make sure we're able to add that person to our list. The third thing that I suggest is to say, think a little bit about adjustments in your gifts. Maybe it's not fully adding someone or certainly not fully subtracting someone, but instead you're adjusting to say, yeah, this group of people, I need to adjust how we do that. For my family, the gift card example comes with my brothers. And we used to just, say, hey, what do you want this year? This gift card. And we just trade them. And we say, you know what, we're just going to do it differently next year. Why are we buying each other gift cards? But to do something meaningful, to share an experience together. So if you start to think through who you're going to give to and who you're not going to give to, one of the guidances that I think the scriptures give us about gift giving is that there's a lot of pitfalls when we're trying to give gifts. So let me just give you, as I kind of wrap this up here, some relational pitfalls to avoid. Now, there's a beautiful expression of thanks to God in Paul's writing when he writes to his friends in a city of Corinth. And it just says this. These 8 words, I think, are powerful. It says, thanks be to God for his indescribable gift. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift. If you let yourself think about that phrase, those 8 words for just a few moments, I think there's so much within this that will guide how to give relationally. And I'm going to frame this in the negative, how not to give relationally. So let me give you a few ideas that I think are rooted in the scriptures. Here's the first one. Here's a pitfall to avoid. Let fairness drive you. Let fairness drive you. I think you should avoid letting fairness drive you. Do you ever feel like, well, since I gave this person a gift, now I also need to give this person a gift? Some of you are parents and you're accountants all at the same time. And you think, if I spent $78.62 on my son, then I have to spend $78.62 on my daughter. And I want to suggest to you that fairness oftentimes gets in the way of expressions of love. The chance to be extravagant this year to someone without being extravagant to everyone should be an opportunity that you have in front of you. And maybe if you're so committed to fairness, you can think over the arc of time, over the next 5 or 10 years, I want to make sure that I'm extravagant to all the people I want to be. But if you let fairness drive you, it'll drive you mad. When God sent his son into the world, some of you would have been up there advising God, you probably shouldn't do it now, because this group of people that's going to get it now means a group of people that lived 100 years ago or lives 100 years from now isn't going to be there, so you probably shouldn't send him at all, because all you think about is fairness. But the truth is that the people who are in our lives, they have different relationships to us. And I don't know if you've ever thought about it this way, but the most unequal thing that you can do is to treat unequal people equally. It's actually the most unequal thing that you can do, is to look at people who aren't in the same situation and treat them as if they are. So the chance to look into each person's situation and say, you know what, this year we're going to do this for this person and not feel obligated to equalize that out somewhere else, frees you up to be a relational gift giver. Second, a pitfall to avoid, make the gift about you, right? Now, this is my problem sometimes. I'm not all that excited about giving gifts, and then I think, what's the easiest way to produce gifts? I can stop at Dunkin' Donuts and buy like 50 $5 gift cards and be like on my way, but that's really about me more than it's about anyone else. And I think many times gift giving does become about us. So I'm on the receiving end of that sometimes. I don't think there's probably anyone in this room who's guilty of this, so I feel free to say it. But there were a couple times early on in my ministry when I got gifts from people in our church or in my family. And you know what they'd give me? A Bible. Because I don't have any Bibles. I mean, when you stop and think about it, you understand what a silly gift that is to give to a pastor. But if you don't think about it very much, if you just think, oh, he's a pastor, he probably uses a Bible. You know what? My wife is a school teacher. Do you know how many cheap Apple-themed trinkets we've received over the years? If you're giving gifts to your teachers, I got some teachers in here tonight. You want to high-five me, don't you? You're like, yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. We used to have a guest bedroom that was Apple trinket themed because we didn't know what to do with all the stuff. And then we're like, we don't even like apples. We're not even going to make our guest bedroom that way. We threw it all away. But this is what happens sometimes when you don't really give thought to the person that you're giving to, and instead you might make it about yourself. Sometimes I'll tell people, you don't have to write a note with every gift that you give, but you should be able to. You should be able to think in your mind, this is why I bought this gift for this person. And maybe you even express that verbally when you talk to them. But to step back and say, this isn't about me. Whoever I'm going to give a gift to, I'll think enough about them personally that I'll make it meaningful for them. Here's another pitfall to avoid. To believe that any person has everything. You guys have heard this phrase. Maybe some of you have used the phrase. I've been guilty of using it before. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to get from my mom. What do you get for the person who has everything, right? Who needs nothing, who could buy whatever they want? I'm not going to be able to get them a gift. And then I always step back from that and I think, my mom doesn't have everything. I mean, maybe she has everything she wants that money can buy, but she doesn't have everything. And the person that you think has everything, I promise you they don't have everything. Are they completely full of joy? No room for more joy? Do they have faith? What if the person who has everything doesn't have faith, and your gift could be a helpful, beautiful expression to invite them to faith? Nobody has everything. And so many times when we think of gift giving and we think of it being something that you can buy or wrap up in a package, it limits our thinking to say, what would be the best gift I could give someone this year? My mom is a person who loves the theater, but she lives in central Illinois and not a lot of theater going on there. And a few years ago, Jenny, of course, not me, because Jenny's a much better gift giver than I am, said, hey, why are we trying to buy stuff for your mom? Why don't we just every year get her tickets to the theater? I said, that's great. We'll buy her a ticket to the theater. Jenny's like, no, we're not buying her a ticket and sending her on her own. That's not what she wants. We'll buy her a ticket and us and the kids and dinner and this experience that we share together. And I've always thought we should be very careful about just buying things, because many times the best gifts are shared experiences. Another pitfall to avoid is to keep it impersonal. So when Paul writes, thanks be to God for this indescribable gift, the thing that was so indescribable about this gift from God is that it was exactly what each one of us needed. It was personal. And one of the things that is personal is what you share or want to share with someone else. So when I try to balance out doing something that's meaningful with something that isn't about me, I do always think that Christmas is the perfect time for an encouragement of someone's faith. A couple of years ago, if you were around, you know that we did our all-church journey, and we did this book called Freebird. After I read this book, it was a novel. It wasn't kind of a typical all-church journey for us, and I thought, this is a great book. And in particular, I thought it was a great book for some of the guys in my life about work and faith and how they intersect or sometimes don't intersect with one another. And so I thought to myself, I'm going to give this book to every one of my brothers and my brother-in-law and my father-in-law and a few other guys in my life. I bought a whole stack of them. And again, thank God that Jenny is in my life, because I was just going to give them the book. And she said, Greg, that book is about you. It's not about them. I said, no, but I want it to be about them. She said, then buy them a great gift and give them the book too. And I think that's what makes it personal. I'd never give a book to anyone without writing a note on the inside of it. Don't ever give a book to someone without writing a note on the inside of it. That's what makes it personal. And it was so interesting to me that about 3 months ago, which is a full year and a half after I gave my older brother this book, he texted me and said, hey, Greg, finally got around to reading that book you gave me in Christmas 2016. Made me think a lot. I'd like to talk about it sometime. So when you have this vision for gift giving this year, make it personal. Put yourself out there a little bit. Share part of who you are and your wishes and your hopes and your dreams for them. And I think fundamentally, maybe the principle that you and I would want to embrace when it comes to gift giving this year is simply this. You want to avoid the pitfall of letting awkwardness stop you. Some of you have been listening to me for the last half hour and you thought, Greg, that's kind of cheesy. Greg, that's kind of risky. Greg, I couldn't see myself writing a note to someone. Greg, that would be awkward. And I don't know if you've caught this over the last 6 months. One of the great things I've discovered about people that I want to help you blow through is that all the time in people's lives, the moment something becomes awkward, people decide to step back. But I am telling you, life is on the other side of awkward. The best experiences of life are when you push through the awkwardness and you say, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And I might crash and burn, or I might experience the best Christmas ever, but I'm going to push through awkward. I'm going to say things. I'm going to take the risks. I'm going to write things. I'm going to give gifts that might seem a little unique or not traditional. But I won't let the idea that other people's expectations and obligations set the tone for what kind of gifts I'm allowed to give. And I'm going to go for meaningful and bringing joy and bringing honor and meeting needs. And I think if you shape your gift giving that way this year, it could be the best Christmas ever. Let me pray for us right now. God, thanks for your goodness to us. God, for most of us in this room, you've given us way more than we need. Way more than we need. And so I pray, God, that when we share that in this season, it's an expression not just of our love for someone, but an expression of your love to them as well. In Jesus' name.